and I am going to say this. Good morning. This is WX Live webinar number 60, following Uncle Pete this morning, Friday, May 3rd. And it's all about what the hell do you want to know? Glenn, help me out.
Oh,
Glenn is going to do. Glenn Rathke and I were talking yesterday, and we were just talking about, you know, people say, I would say, want to know how to do it in WX, and he says, want to know. You know, he's a professor. Want to know how in WX.
At least I don't teach English, then I'd really be in trouble.
Yeah. Anyway,
so
yeah, we're starting a series of stuff that Glenn will kind of answer that question, and also dive into WX IDE at some point in the series. Maybe not today, but maybe a little today. I don't know. Here's Glenn.
Well, we thought we'd cover in some of these sessions, just as you had mentioned, the WX, the IDE, and we can look at the toolbar just briefly today, because that right now is the biggest difference between this and previous versions. And then we'll also go and, well, I've got a section in our training materials, and it's not so much about the training, it's just things that you can envision or think of having in your applications. And that's actually how I put things in my materials. And I had thought at one time of how can you have a generic export and how can you do a generic import. So those are the two things we'll be looking at after the toolbar. But as you see at the top, we've got the toolbar. And what's really kind of nice is it's kind of intimidating at first. It was to me, but it's not overwhelming like the old toolbars that we had. And what's really nice at this point is we can switch back and forth. So if you need to go back and say, oh, I can't find what I've got in what I need in the toolbar, just go back up or the RibbonBar and let's use the old system. Or if you want to bring in the old menu so you can still navigate, you can do that too. So as you can see, we're broken down into functional areas here. We have a home tab, your project tab, your SCM, your automatic tests, your creation, and the creation has your toolbar where you've got all your controls for creating. Modifications, you go to your descriptions of your 8 tabs, your alignment toolbar, your windows, display, and tools and such. Then what you can do in here is if you say, okay, I'm trying to find a particular function on this RibbonBar, and I really can't find that. On the right-hand side, there's the magnifying lens, and we can actually type in, now say I wanted to find out where SCM was. I just type SCM, and you can see on the screen it says SCM Administrator, opens the SCM Administrator, Ribbon, Pane, SCM, Grouping, Database, and Control Manage. So now actually I could just go to SCM. Let me close this here. We'll go to SCM, and here's all our tools for managing our SCM. So everything's broken out into its own screen so you don't see all that large toolbar up top with every single icon that you've got up there and have to configure it. At least it's all here. I'm still, I don't want to say struggling, but I'm still working my way through trying to get used to what's here. So that's...
You know, the features they've added there to find it and so forth tells me that the person that designed this was very bitter about the Office switchover, because that was exactly the problem. When Office switched over, they didn't give us any way to go back and forth, any way to find where the new commands were.
Yeah.
So once again, you got to take your hat off to PCSoft paving that road a little smoother.
Every time I use their products, I think of that what they've developed is just fantastic. Yep.
Yeah. And they're so conscious of not making a new version leave us in a lurch. You know, it's always a progression up without damaging the past.
Exactly. Exactly. And a really good example of that, and one of these sessions we're hoping to look into that, is we had the old functionality of groupware, and where you just had one user per role. Well, now in their newest groupware, one user can have multiple roles. So this goes just to what Pete's saying. is they don't deprecate old functionality and make your new programs, if you just take a 17 application to 18, it won't break because it still uses the old functionality. I think that's appreciated, especially, you know, in the IDE now with this RibbonBar and the old toolbar. So good point. Okay, and we'll delve into the IDE and other functionality as we go into more sessions. But for right now, what I want to do is just show you the possibilities of doing a generic export. There's times that your users want to be able to export their data and maybe even just export specific columns of their data. And so what I've designed here is an export that will look at your tables in your analysis, and then it'll look at the fields in there, and you can build the table on the fly and then actually export that data. So let's go ahead and run this at first. And so what I do is I select a table, and we're doing nothing but looking at the functionality here of being able to interrogate the analysis. And so it returns every table to me in my combo. And then once I select the table, I can interrogate that table, again with using the functions for going against analysis, and return all my fields that I have. And you'll see all the fields that are highlighted are also in the table on the left-hand side. So if we want to specify just specific fields or a group of fields, we can do that. Okay. So right now, what I want to do is I'll select all of them. I want to return all the data because I know it's a small data set, so I can do that. And so as I do it, it brings back all my data for me. And now, this is a really cool point because this is part of just built into our WinDev, is we can now do an export, and we could say export table to XML or Excel or Word or whatever we want to do from here. And so at that point, we could actually export that to Excel or Word or whatever we want, or XML. In my case, I would do XML later. The other thing that we can also do is we say, okay, I now need to limit my record set. And so again, this is another piece of functionality that we can look at later, but this is an example that we have in our materials of a query by example. So if you're tired of writing all your QBEs, you know, as entry fields on top of your browsers, you can implement something like this, where you just actually go and select the fields, put in a criteria, a test value. You can execute that, and we can save the query for later reuse. But anyway, here is our data now that is ready for export. And again, I could say, let's just do the L name. Well, it actually resets everything, so let's just go back and bring all of this in. Go back and select people again. And do the QBE, and we'll just return those two records, execute it, and then go do our export. So the feature here that's built in is the AAF, when we can do our exporting. And what we've done is, and let's take just a brief look at some of the code. And it's not so much of going through code that you'd have to remember, but maybe some higher principles in here is, let's go to the combo box. And so this is really a nice feature right here, HList file. And so I'm saying HList file, HList all, give me all the information for every single table that I have. And then it comes back in a string, and each table name is separated, or each record is separated by a carriage return. I can then loop through that string, and to me this is really slick. It's just to be able to say for each string of my other string, S table of file list separated by a carriage return. And as I cycle through that, I can actually say I want to exclude whatever tables I have. And I'm thinking of expanding this so you don't have to hard type this in. We could actually maintain a table. Regardless, it loops through. Then I'm going to populate my list box of all the fields that I have with these lines. And then when we're in the list box, and we're going to actually go to a function here called hide the columns, and we are going to loop through our table, because what we've done at this point is we've got all the the table all built on all the columns in that table. And so what I want to do is I want to find if any column name in the list on the right-hand side is actually selected. I want to go through the table, and I'm going to loop through it. And what I want to do is turn off all the fields that I'm not showing, and turn on the ones I am showing. Okay. And then over here, once we've got our fields, so we're going to be displaying them or turning them on in the table, then we actually go over to our code. Now, usually I put the code for displaying the data in the initialization of the table. And this is one of the few times that I haven't. I guess I still could, but I chose to broke it out here. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to use the typical build browsing table and give it the table name, give it my values, and I want to do it with an auto ID. I want to do it a caption up in the table, and I want to actually fill it with data. So this one line right here is really powerful for taking a data source pretty much and just building a table based on it without even having the column names. Now, this is available to us in WinDev, but not in WebDev, and I'm pretty sure that still holds true for 18. But in a future session, what we'll do is show you how to do a build browse table through code so we can have that same functionality. And then over in the QBE section, and it's not so much about going through the QBE because we do cover that in the class. And if we decided to do that at a future time again, we could, because we make heavy use of indirection. And so the point here is to implement the QBE. It takes one line of code to call up that window. I believe it takes 3 or 4 variables. We set the values, and then it displays with all the field names in the QBE. And then when it comes back, we do the same type of thing. We do our build browse table, but this time it's based on a SQL statement that we're returning from that QBE. And the QBE is nice because it will return either an H filter or it will return a SQL statement for you, depending what your needs are. And the one thing that I have to say about the QBE, it started off really as a PC soft project, but everything was coded in there. And how it's implemented here is you can just either point it to an analysis table and it will grab all the columns, or you can point it to a table control and it will then interrogate that table control and find out what columns you're showing, what its captions are. So it's evolved nicely from their very simple example to this, and it's even evolved one step further in how Pete has handled that, and he's actually implemented this as in classes. So I think this example itself is just a good starting or a learning point for various things, and then to see how to take it to a class. Anybody have?
And it's a $600 aftermarket product in some environments.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a nice feature to be able to add your applications, whether you use it this way or use it as Pete's with the class. It just alleviates you from having to hard code or hand code that QBE for every screen that you've got to browse on there. Yeah. Any questions or points or?
Yeah, again, I asked Glenn to come on and do his series mainly to help us see what possibilities there are, because a lot of times when people are developing and looking into developing in WinDev, they want us, can you do this, can you do that, rather than how you do it. And so that's
right. I don't want to. Yeah, it's not that I want to go through every nut and bolt in here. I want to just show you the possibilities. And again, the examples that we put in our material are based on people's requests. And so a perfect example with this is I was working on this CSV import because somebody last week had asked for an import facility. And then I thought it was working well and told Pete about it. And he said, well, why don't you try importing XML? So I've implemented the XML in here. given the fact that it has to be a single file import, I'm not handling children at this point. It will just take one table at a time, one file at a time. And of course, there's many different variations on what can happen in the XML. And so what I kind of based it off of was two different things. I went out to the Microsoft site and found their test.xml that they have for their, I think, their authors database. And then I also just used the export feature that we were just going through. And I exported a table of people to it. And so I thought if I could import those two different XMLs, well, two different sources of XML, this would suffice for the beginning of the project. So let me run through this. And I'm just going to take just a real quick aside from that right now. I'm at the toolbar here. And so if we notice on the left-hand side now of the toolbar where I'm highlighting these controls, this is kind of like at your project level. The things that you use the most, which is really handy because look, we've got the analysis we can go to right here. We can do both of our runs. We can do our saving. And this save, I believe, is the project save. So it will save everything for us or what we're working on. And then we can, and this is where I'm at most of the time. So regardless whether I'm home or project, it's the ones on my left-hand side. These 9 icons all stay the same, which makes it handy. So back to our example now, which is the import. And what I've done is I've used planes here. And so this is plane 0. And so I just have, I want to display my CSV and my XML buttons, but I also have previous and next buttons. And so on plane 0, I'm actually doing some conditional hiding. So I'm not wanting to see my next and previous buttons just yet. So we've got the CSV, and we go out and do a directory picker, and we can specify what kind of files we want to look at in the directory. So I'm saying I want to look at CSV files right now, so I'm not so cluttered. And just select these particular files. So I'll select that file, and we open it up. I interrogate the CSV, and we go through and we actually clone the different columns here in the table. This table, when it's first built, just in the IDE, only has one column, and that's CSV 001. And so I'll go through the import, and then I'll take it into an array, because we can do CSV to array, which is really a handy feature. And if you have it a 2-column or multi-dimensional array, it will automatically resize how many columns you need for the array. And then it will also then add all those rows into the array. So at that point, I can interrogate the array and find out, okay, how many columns do you have? And what I'll do is I'll then clone the column for every single column that I need to do. So if I have 10 columns in my array, I will clone 9 of them and then just change the value of the first column. And so I'll interrogate that array.
Question, Glenn.
Yeah. Yeah?
You had mentioned the CSV to array.
Yeah.
The problem I ran into with that in the past was it doesn't work with the Excel standard CSVs, the quotes only around fields that have special characters.
You are exactly right. So what if you have that instance where you've got, I had a field in here that had a comma between 2 values. And so Excel would put the double quotes around that field, but no other fields. And so that is a good point, because what you need to do, we need to make sure they don't have embedded characters, or every field has to be quote delimited. Because otherwise it'll break it up because it can't figure out.
Okay, so they haven't changed that.
No, they have not changed that at all.
I was hoping maybe they had. Okay.
That was a suggestion I had just submitted this past week, that we have column delimiters as a comma or whatever else we want to specify. We should also have the field delimiter, so we can say how's a field delimited.
Right, because like it or not, Excel CSV is the CSV standard at this point in time.
It could be. because I know there's CSV for.
Well, it just from the fact that there's so many people using Excel, you're likely to get
right
a CSV file that's been put out of Excel, and you're going to have that issue.
Right. So there is a caveat. You just need to make sure how your file is formatted. Okay. So once we have the CSV brought in, then you can look at it and you can say, oh, well, that first row does appear to have my column names in there. So we can go and select that and change our column names. And we can actually go back and forth. We say, no, that really wasn't my column names. For whatever reason, you don't know what your data looks like. We can go back and actually change that and flip it. And because we've now...
That is very fast and smooth.
And now because we've stepped through this import, now our next button shows up, which is on the plain 0, as I had said before, but the previous button still is not showing. So let's go to the next step. And here's where we then can say, and again, with the examples, they're usually built on a previous example. And so I was able to leverage what we had before from the generic export, where we can select the tables and then display our fields. And so what I'll do now is I will actually map my fields across, and I can go first name to first name and do a map. And I can do my last name to last name and map it. And then I'm going to take a birth date. And I've only worked with dates right now. I haven't worked with date times, and I need to do that, but this is the very beginning of it. So I'll map dates across. And of course, for those of you who work with the dates, you know, I mean, there's so many different formats that your date can come in. MMDD, DDMM, YYYY, YY, all those things. So what I've done is, when I select the date, it will now come, and on your left-hand list box here, it will show you all the values of the dates that are there. In fact, I'm not sure how this is going to work with the quotes in there right now. And then what you do is you select the date, and if it were the proper, you know, it's one of these things. I've tested this, tested this, tested this. And what should be happening at this point is you would say, yes, these dates are both in the same format, they're fine. And then what you do is we say dates are same format, and then you select the proper date. Well, clearly that is not the proper date. It should be Tuesday, December 11th. But if my example were 100% perfect, it would say that. I would select the date just to say, yes, this is the format. Everything looks great for the date that I'm working with. And then we just would validate it. And then we would move to our next step, which is this is the W language code that now is created from your import. And you can do one of, actually two things right now. You could copy it to the clipboard, so you could just paste it into your application. You could execute it, and it will actually import the data right now. Let me go back, because I know I would have an issue with the date, so let me just remove that. And let me just have the likes. We'll map it. Occupation, map it. Next, and we could now execute this, and this 2 records have been added to my database. So what's really nice with this, as we do with our dynamic business rules, is we can save this generated code to your database. And so anytime that you would want to re-import your data because you have a new feed, then what we can do is just execute that code, because that's what we're doing behind the scenes on the execute button, is just that runtime, the dynamic compile. And this one's just execute code is all that it does. What I want to do is we'll stop this right here, and we will run this now as XML. And to your users, it should all appear the same. And as you can see, we're out to our directory picker, and I'm specifying just XML files. So it reads the XML, brings it all in. We do next. We're going to do our same mapping that we had done before. exactly nothing different. So I'm trying to make it transparent to the user of what all happens. Full name, map, next. There's the code again that's generated. And this code, as you can see, what it does is it's just the same code that I've created before. We read the file, we put it into an array, we go through the array, and then we're actually going to be, here's we're going through the array, and we're actually going to do the, here's the loop, we're adding all the records. And you can see that I have, here's my people first name, and here's my people L name. And if I had multiple fields, if I had two more fields, this would show 2 more lines in here. So the code's dynamic, it's generated right on the fly. And what's also nice with this, since it's W language code, if you need to modify the script here for some reason, maybe you want to uppercase this field, then you could just put in a U case around this or an upper around it. And but speaking of that, I'm actually going back now to this one. There's something else we can do, and I want to expand on this functionality at some point. Is I would like to be able to make something uppercase or lowercase, or concatenate 2 fields together. So that's in the future plans for this. But we can actually take a field and we can enter a default value in here. Just say that. Okay, and it will return that. So when we actually create that, let's go to the next screen and hopefully we'll see what that is. Come down here, and there is our new field with a default value that we just entered in. And then the other thing we can do is we can, like we said, just copy to the clipboard. So that's where I've been spending my time the last week, was developing this example. And I just thought, well, it might be a good idea to show you what the possibilities are with WX. So that's what I've got for today, unless there's questions on this. And I'm always open to suggestions. If other people have other things that they'd like to see of possibilities of how to do something in WX, you know, just drop me a line.
Yeah, you're surprising how you come up with these examples sometimes. And I'm glad you added to your array of examples for us students to cap on.
And the one thing, I forgot to mention about this, is everything is contained in this window. So if you actually just took this window directly into your own application, you'd have an immediate input functionality. There's nothing external to it.
Kind of like Pete said, this is kind of like sometimes you buy a whole third-party thing. I mean, Glenn basically is the supplier.
Well, I think I'll put it this way. I'll be the supplier of the knowledge to get started with that, because I'm kind of in the business of doing training, and I don't know how many products I want to sell and maintain, but it gives you an excellent starting point to put in your app.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if there's...
Thank you very much.
Very, very nice.
So, so next week we'll have a little more of Uncle Pete, and Glenn, you're coming back next week also, right? And then Sunday we have we're going to announce the time sometime here.
Yeah, we're going to do it today. We're going to announce the time today. Just hadn't had a chance.
Yeah, it's probably going to be in the afternoon. Yeah, it's probably going to be in the afternoon sometime, your time, right?
Yeah, well, we'd like to catch some early people and later people. What'd you say, Pete?
I have to observe the Lord's Day.
Yeah, well, webinar, I'm trying to make sure we can catch the, either the South African bunch or the Australian bunch. Try to get them close enough together. One will stay up a little late. One will get up a little early, I guess. See if they want to join in. But we're going to probably have to move it around different times so that way everybody can do it. They will be recorded and they will be public. What the difference is that you won't get any source code unless you're a part of going to the DEF CON or buy into the DEF CON.
Right. Yeah, and we're only going to be showing specific techniques and everything. We're not going to be stepping through every line of code. So, you definitely want to get signed up and get involved.
And we've already
Alrighty.
got people signed up already. Alan Cochran's already signed up. And
Wow, he was first the last time too. Oh my goodness.
jumps on it.
I believe George has signed up as well.
Yeah, we got a few that's already signed up already. Just said, and I think it is the Texas barbecue that makes them sign up so quickly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They signed up for the Texas barbecue, and while they're there, they'll go ahead and go through the conference.
So.
I was on the fence until I heard Belinda was doing beans.
Her baked beans, and that'll make you want to fight. I won't tell you what, because you'd be looking at that and going, I want that piece right there. I want that right there, and you can't have it. It's mine.
Yeah. Belinda generally sits between me and Andy when she puts the beans on the table and says, "Boys,
bunch of kids." My Lord. Okay. So without, if there's no other questions, we're gonna call it for the day, right?
Yep.
Go to work. So say your thing, Andy.
All right. Be good at it. We'll talk to you Sunday.
Alrighty. Later.
Later.
Thanks, guys. All right.
Thank you very much, Pete and Glenn.